Hello and welcome along to the SUTV show. In this episode, Carl and I are going to reflect back on our game against Wolves. We're also going to catch up with Coach Keith Andrews, and of course we'll look ahead to our game on Monday night as we host Arsenal at the Lane. But Carl, first, let's talk about Wolves. You were there. Loads more positives to take away from it.
Yeah, really good game of football. The atmosphere is the first thing that really got me. It was really intense. The first 10-15 minutes, Wolves were electric. They came out of the blocks flying. The fans were right behind them. And the boys stood up to them. You know, I was really proud of them. They stood up to them. They weathered the storm. They quelled the hostility from the fans. And then they started playing their own football. And everyone would be bitterly disappointed they didn't come away with anything, because there were moments of play when we were just playing around them, playing really good bits of football. It wasn't just endeavour and hard graft. That was all there. The shape was there, the structure was there. But when they had the ball, the boys looked like they could really do some damage. So it was a good game of football.
And a shame for Brewster as well. I mean, he took that really well, that ball that came in, and he took that shot. I mean, it was a great save from their goalie. It was powerful, but it's just a shame one didn't go in for him.
Yeah, well, he had a great game. Personally, I thought he was outstanding. I said on commentary, it looked like, you know, I may be talking out of place, but it looked like he trusted his body. You know, there was a moment in the second half, he did a really wonderful turn with the instep of his foot, and he pushed away with real power. And I've had many injuries myself, and there's a little point where you begin to trust your body again, and you really give it 100%, and you just act naturally and you instinctively. And I saw this bit of play he did, and I just thought, you know, he looks so sharp now. He's coming back. There was bits in the first half where he had the volley of his right foot and then his left foot. Incredible, you know.
The way he brought it down as well was great. Yeah,
all his control,
yeah.
His strength, his running. He's an unselfish player. He works his socks off for the team. I thought he did really. But going through the team, I thought everyone they all played really well. They gave a good account of themselves. But as you say, there was great passages of play where we had one-on-ones. You know, Brewster had a one-on-one, McAtee had a one-on-one, playing away in the Premier League. You know, not many teams are able to do that.
Wolves looked very frustrated as well. They
looked
really
frustrated, and the press conference after the match, Gary O'Neill was so complimentary that, you know, first half he was proud of his team and they went at us, but we were able to hold them. You know, they got a goal, but then they didn't run away with it, and then we exerted ourselves. And second half, you know, he was full of admiration of how we played, and he didn't have the answers. He said he put his hands up and said, look, it's my fault. I couldn't work out how to break them down second half, and that was testament to our team working hard, the management coming up with a plan and utilising it. Again, it's a real positive, and there's good performance on a loss, and it's just the small details that we're lacking.
Yeah, and it was non-stop as well, because we brought all them attacking subs on, and we kept going, and you could see them right at the end as well. They were time wasting with the ball tactically because we were coming forward.
Oh, they were.
That last game of play that we had was so close.
Oh, completely. You know,
yeah.
They were time wasting, and they were their game management, because we were doing so well. And as you say, we had good substitutes to come on who were affecting the game, and it was just very frustrating. We weren't able to get at least 1 point.
No, exactly. Well, joining us now is Coach Keith Andrews. Well, Keith, welcome to SUTV show. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. And I mean, at the weekend, me and Carl were just chatting about the Wolves game at the weekend, but that must have been a bit of a trip down memory lane for you, because I think that's where you started your professional career, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've been back quite a few times, watching games, playing for teams when I went elsewhere in my career. But that was the first time I was back as a coach, so it was nice. Yeah, the commentator on the game that was Don Goodman, who was an older pro, senior pro, when I joined there as an apprentice. So yeah, I joined there as a 15-year-old, very young. Obviously, I had 9 years there. During which time I had a loan spell at Stoke where I met Sabs. So yeah, it was quite nostalgic actually going back to the stadium and seeing a few familiar faces. But listen, it's a long time ago since I left there. So I was really looking forward to getting a result against them, but unfortunately it wasn't to be.
No, and how did you feel walking down that tunnel as a coach with your team?
Yeah, listen, coaching is a passion of mine. It was the next progression from the age of about 29. I started getting into coaching in terms of mentally and preparing for it, and the license that you have to go through. So it's what I love doing. I love working with players. I love trying to improve players, building relationships with players. The whole tactical element of the game is something that fascinates me and I'm obsessed about, which is why I wanted to go back there and hopefully get a result. But yeah, going down the tunnel, having a quiet confidence about what we could do that day against a team that had been playing very, very well, obviously. But knowing the Wolves fans like I do, I felt we could keep them quiet, frustrate them. You'll have played there.
It was hostile there.
Yeah,
and you quelled them.
It can become a little bit edgy, and where they are in the league and the results they've had, the likes of Chelsea and Spurs the week before, we felt that if we could quieten them and stay in the game, certainly at 1-0, and then cause them problems, and you could feel that growing in the stadium, and I felt our players grew off the back of that in confidence. It was just unfortunate we couldn't quite take one of those opportunities that we mustered up, because I felt we deserved it on Sunday.
You said you were about 29 when you knew that you wanted to be a coach. Through your career, are there any coaches that really stood out and you loved the way they dealt with themselves and got their point over, that you thought, well, I want to take on some of their attributes?
Yeah, quite a few. You just pick up little nuggets, and it can be certain ways a manager thinks about the game or sets up a team. We obviously worked with Tony Pulis at Stoke, and defensively the way he set up a team, always had admiration for that. Roy Hodgson was a coach that I took a lot from. I worked with him at West Brom and still use things that he would have put into practice, and I've got a few friends that played under him and would have the similar type of attitude about the game. I thought he was so forward thinking in his approach to the game. When you look back at how teams were prepared then, I think everybody now has obviously caught up, and it's such an innovative kind of sport that we work in, and it's always thinking about the next best thing. How do we constantly try and evolve as an individual, as a manager upstairs, and a staff and a group of players? So yeah, it's just something that fascinates me. But I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of really good coaches and managers.
And like being a football, when you're a player, you're so selfish. You're focused on yourself. But being a coach, I would have thought one of the biggest roles is being able to see when a player needs a word, when their confidence is going, or just to put their arm around. How's that? Is that a massive part that you...
It's a constant journey, I think, for me anyway, because we would have played together, and I was very demanding as a player. I was very vocal. I was very highly strung. To say the least, I can still be like that. I can still be like that as a coach. I can genuinely still be like that as a coach. So even for me as a journey, I compare myself now to, say, 5 years ago as a coach. I think some of the players might disagree, but I think I'm much more understanding of exactly what you've alluded to. We're not robots. Some of us have bad days. Let's be honest, the season's been tough. There's been a lot of days where the players have had to struggle. We've had to go again as a group the next day. We've had to review games, move on quickly, and confidence gets hit.
How is
morale.
That picking because after a loss, it's easy to wallow. You're self-pity, but you must be, on a Monday, getting the boys confident again and getting them laughing and joking.
I think there's no other way, is there? I think you just have to dust yourself down and realise the position that we're in. There's no time for that. You have to respect that there's a period after a game where you're naturally disappointed, you're upset. The manner of the performance obviously is a big part of it for me and all Chris and the coaching staff. And then I think there needs to be that, okay, now we move forward, and naturally that's a day or two after the game where we try and create an energy within the building where we're not feeling sorry for ourselves. We try and move forward, we try and do the right things consistently on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully that brings you a performance at the end of the week.
Do you enjoy, because obviously club football, you've come from international football, addressing a defeat is a lot easier if you're losing the international, you might not see the boys for 6 weeks. So are you enjoying the day-to-day of football, league management?
Yeah, look, as soon as the Ireland chapter ended, I was always going to go back into a club environment. I didn't know where that was going to be. But yeah, I relish the day-to-day, because you just alluded to it, the break between international breaks where you can't rectify things the following day and tweak and fix and work with players and improve them and do video clips, which I'm going upstairs to do with some of the young midfielders. So that's the really frustrating part of it. Whereas we have the fortunate position now where we're seeing each other day in, day out here. And listen, some of the players might not like that, but we strive to do our best.
It is a full-time job. I know.
Yeah, of course.
When I played, it was sort of we'd train in the morning, we'd have a couple of hours off and do gym. But now, I know the young lads are in from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 5. It is a proper continual improvement.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's the evolution of the game, isn't it? And the professionalism around the game, every single aspect of it. You look at the staff now that's involved in academies, or whether it's up with us with the first team, it's so vast, and you have to try and cover every single aspect of the game. And I think it's something that gets drilled into the young players here really well. I've been really impressed, watch a lot of academy sessions. Spent some time with Derek Geary, Danny Calamatri, a lot of Mickey, the 21s. I think they get a really, really good apprenticeship here. I've seen a lot of clubs, I've visited a lot of clubs, and I think there's a real good grounding. We would have gone through and seen a lot of old school style apprenticeships, if you like, and I think some of that wasn't so good in terms of what you had to go through and the experiences.
I saw kids being put in tumble dryers.
Yeah, it was,
back in the day. Oh, it's so different now.
Yeah. But I think that there's a balance to be got, isn't there, between you've got to get young players ready for the big bad world, because it's not easy. When you step in front of 30,000+ fans at Bramall Lane and there's an expectation level of what's required, you have to get those lads ready for that. And I think this club does it really well.
And I know we just touched on your change from international football to club football. How's it for you changing from a managerial team as well and coming into a new team? I've
relished it. I've worked with Stephen Kenny for 5 years, a couple of years with the 21s, and then 3 years with the first team, the senior team with Ireland. So big change in dynamic for a start, personnel. I have to say, coming back in here, I was the only one to come back in here that wasn't been here before. That made it probably easier because everybody else knew each other really. Staff-wise, I was welcomed really, really well. And then it's just a case of learning about Chris, Alan, Matt, Jack Lester, all the staff are in and around that, and they've been very, very welcoming. And you've just got to find your place, how you can help, how you can assist. Because that's what I want to do really. I want to be here to help. I want to develop personally, selfishly. Yeah. I love coaching, so I want to be on the grass. I want to work with players like I've alluded to already. But I've really, really enjoyed it. I've liked the dynamic. I've got a lot of time and respect for Chris and Alan, mainly, who I knew but didn't know really well. And I've enjoyed the opportunity that I've been given, and hopefully I can continue to add bits and bobs to what they already do very, very well.
And I know you've touched on quite a bit there of taking your player knowledge through to your coaching knowledge. Obviously, you played over, I think it was a 70, you've had over 70 appearances in the Premier League. How do you find that you can adapt that into the lads and give them that bit of understanding between a coach and a player, that dynamic?
Yeah, my style isn't really to speak about myself. I think that's just in the back of your head in terms of the experience you have as a player, as a person. They just form you, don't they? That's who you are and who you continue to strive to be. I don't think I've used one example of anything I've gone through personally, but I just try to build relationships with players. And like I've alluded to already, I know I'm very demanding of them. Sometimes I need to back off them, recognise when they're not having a particularly good day. And yeah, listen, I'm far from the finished article. I just love learning, love developing. Keep going back to about the relationships with players. We would have had certain relationships. My biggest thing is when players aren't playing, that's when they need a little bit more. I think the ones that are playing, they tend to look after themselves.
What about the injured? Because I was always in the injured room, and that is the hardest place. I know the manager speaks so well about the boys who are injured. That's the last place to want to be. Do you show your face and let them know that you're...
Yeah, every morning. So the buildings are obviously a little bit disjointed here, so we go up to the top building and the boot room is near it, so make a thing of going in because we've been there, haven't we? It's the worst part of being a footballer where you can be frustrated about not getting selected on a Saturday, but you've got a chance of getting on, or at least you can have a run around and kind of get that out of your system. Whereas the ones that unfortunately have been through, especially the ones that have, we've had a few recently that just hasn't been nice, their journey back to fitness and then getting re-injured, and you just try and do as much as you can because you've been in that position. So I suppose that goes back to what you're saying about the experience that you have. You know how it feels and you know how down and low they can get at times, and sometimes it's nice when it's not just the physios, the sports science going up to them that you know, even though we're concentrating on preparing the team, they're very much still in our thoughts.
Were there any of the players, because obviously you watched a load of football in the Championship when the players were there, were any of the young players, were you excited to be able to work with, that you knew, oh God, I'm going to be one of the coaches now? Were you excited to see any of the young lads coming through?
Yeah, barring the signings that probably came in last summer, I know the squad pretty much inside out. I would have watched them from afar. Obviously, in my role with Ireland, I would have been here watching John Egan this season. Before that, obviously, Enda Stevens, Conor Harahan was here as well. So I would know a lot of them, and I know what they're capable of. And I think that's probably a message that I constantly give to them, even if it's in a one-to-one. Look, and we know we're going through a tough time. We know the league is as it is. It's such a ruthless, hard league to compete in and get results in, but we can't lose sight of what they're capable of, and that as an individual first and foremost. So yeah, listen, there's plenty, and I enjoy working with them, really enjoy working with them.
No, Keith, thank you very much for joining us on SUTV. It's been great to get some coaching insight. Thank
you.
you.
Pleasure.
Well, Carl, it's Arsenal on Monday night, and this is going to be a tough game. They beat us 5-0 on our away game. What are you expecting out of this one?
A tough game. I'm expecting a tough game. But just like when Liverpool came, I'm expecting us to make it as hard a match as possible. They're not going to be turning up. We're not turning up thinking, well, we've lost. You can't. I think they're going to have a good game plan. The boys are all going to be energised for it. They lift their performance as well. You know, you've got all the cameras there. You've got the best players in the world turning up, and you're going to be so excited to play against them. So, no, it's a really tough. It's as tough as they come at the moment. And the form Arsenal are in the league, but this is what you want. You know, this is what dreams are made of. You're playing against Arsenal under lights in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are on great form as well. But what do you think we can take away that we did from Wolves and bring that frustration and try and frustrate Arsenal a bit at home as well at the Lane?
Well, yeah, the atmosphere at Molineux was really intense. And the boys, they're able to weather the storm. It's going to be very difficult against Arsenal the way they play and they keep the ball. But if our fans are with us and they stick with us and they understand we're scrapping for everything, the fans, they get their energy from what goes on the pitch. So if we play like we did at home against Liverpool, you saw the reception and the atmosphere that was created by the fans and the players. You know, it's a circle that it feeds itself. So just hope that the boys start well, high intensity, and make it difficult. And you know, it's going to be a really interesting fixture because again, everyone's written us off. It's 3 points for Arsenal. So the boys are just, you know, the motivation's there.
And obviously, Carl, Arsenal will be coming with all that attacking side because they've been getting goals on their away games. It's 5-0, 6-0. And obviously, we've been conceding those, you know, them 5-0 games. But do you still want Chris to come out with that attacking 11?
Well, I think the manager's got to acknowledge, and he has so far this season, who you're up against. If you come out and you say, well, Arsenal, we're going to play tippy-tappy football with you, they're one of the best in the world. The way that we try and bridge the gap is by giving ourselves the best chance using what we're good at and trying to take another team out of their comfort zone. So the manager did it against Liverpool. The players were able to execute the game plan and we're unlucky with the result. We've had some games where Aston Villa are away, where we didn't go to play as the opposition wanted us to. We played at how suits us, and that's what the manager was saying about before the Brighton match. Look, we might not be going the Sheffield United way, which is attack and intensity. We may have to think bigger picture. Unfortunately, we lost a player, and that put it all out the window. But that's what I think we can only do. You can't come into this Premiership, which is evolving year after year, 200 million, you know, the gap is growing and growing, and expect to be able to play as the opposition does, because they've had more years, they've got better players. So the manager will be trying to come up with a game plan, an intensity from the players, and a structure that will give us the best chance. And it will not be to be open, but that's realistic. Not many teams, maybe Man City or Liverpool, can play open against Arsenal and hope to get anything. The rest of the division can't, and that's us included.
And looking at, obviously, players, Holgate will still be out, but people that might be coming back, we've got Diaz and Baldock. maybe see their potential return to the team?
Well, it'd be brilliant. You know, if they bolster the squad, they'll add to the squad. Diaz has been wonderful. Baldock, we've known for years. He gives everything, and he's a real plus to the group. That said, the team that played on Sunday at Wolves, I thought they did wonderful. The manager will assess the fitness of the teams and who trains well in the week, and to players to suit the structure that he wants to employ. And I've no doubt that the boys will give their best shot. The intensity will be there, the passion will be there, and you know, as I say, you're at home against Arsenal under lights at Bramall Lane. You know, you've got to be fired up.
Yeah, well, that's all we have time for today on the SUTV show this week. But please do join Carl and Paul pitchside on Monday night, as they'll be going through all the action of that game. We'll see you then.